You watch Fox News, you might come away with the impression that the Republican Party actually cares about ordinary Americans. They don't. In the short time that they've controlled all three branches of government, they orchestrated the largest giveaway in human history to the wealthiest people on the planet. I mean, think about that. They did that amidst a hot economy that had been at better than full employment for nearly 2 years. Borrowing $1.5 trillion that has to be paid back with interest to stimulate an already hot economy. That is the height of fiscal irresponsibility. Forbes magazine called it the worst fiscal policy decision in American history. I think we all know, unfortunately, that it wasn't about stimulating the economy. That was about implementing the two-item agenda of the Republican Party. And there are only 2 items in their agenda. Everything else they talk about, social issues, whatever, it is all just noise to attract single-issue voters. They could care less about those things. They could care less about those things. Republican agenda item number 1, further enrich the wealthiest among us. They did that on the tax law last December. Give you an example. Jeff Bezos is now making a cool $19 million per hour. Per hour. He makes the equivalent of the annual salary of a $15 an hour employee every 11 seconds. Every 11 seconds. That is obscene. As we all know, if you're just paying a little bit of attention, you know that if Republicans maintain control of Congress after the midterms, they will turn to Republican agenda item number 2, and that is diminish any and all expenditures on the common good. They want no part of them. They don't want to pay for them. Social Security, Medicare are meaningless to these people. They want them severely cut, if not trashed altogether. Now, one certain thing experts tell us about this tax law last December is that it catapulted our country into the unenviable position of being the most unequal nation on earth. And I want to remind you that at the end of the 18th century, we fought a war to separate ourselves from the most unequal nation on earth, a nation defined by massive wealth at the top and all kinds of mechanisms in place to ensure intergenerational wealth, to ensure a permanent aristocracy, just like the Republicans are trying to do right here, right now. There was a time when we rejected all of that. In this country, we were going to rise or fall on our own merits, not based on an accident of birth, a la Donald Trump or Pete Ricketts. The end result of that tax law was that the United States has become what we fought to separate ourselves from. And that is a travesty, an absolute travesty. I'm going to extend the analysis just a little farther. We won that war, and our founding fathers had the wisdom to see that if we're going to make a successful republic, we were going to have to separate the power and influence of the church, which actually served to legitimate massive inequality, from the mechanisms of state. The church in the 18th century was the purveyor of news. It gave the fodder to the people, what they would think about and talk about. And the king, because of that tight church-state connection, was actually able to dictate the topics that would be heard from the pulpit. Well, we rejected all of that in this country. In this country, church and state were kept separate. And that did preserve our democracy for a long time, but no more. Our democracy is crumbling by design. It is crumbling by design. As smart as they were, our founding fathers could not foresee the ascendancy of the corporation. They could not envision a day when corporations would be more powerful than the church ever was. And corporations control the news today, control what we hear and therefore think about and talk about in the same way the church did at the end of the 18th century. We had to separate it then, we've got to separate it now. What that means is that it falls to us today to fill the blind spot in the vision of our founders. It falls to us today to separate corporation and state so that we can once again have a government of, for, and by the people. There are a lot of different things that we can work on to advance that agenda. Getting rid of the childish decisions, Buckley versus Vallejo, Citizens United, that's obviously a good place to start. Those decisions are so profoundly anti-democratic, they are simply indefensible. You look like a fool if you try. They're that bad. But I'm going to take a different tack in my attempt to separate corporation and state. I'm going to work from the tax end. I'm going to invoke the finger policy as it relates to tax policy. I haven't decided which finger yet. I'll think about that. When I go to Washington, I'm going to introduce a bill that allows Americans to decide how much annual income it actually takes to never have to lift a finger for anything. How much annual income it takes to pay people to clean your multiple houses, mow your lawns, answer your doors, cook your meals, drive you wherever you want to go, fly you wherever you want to go, a personal physician on call 24/7. Once we determine what that is, what that figure is, that puts a person in a position where they never have to lift a finger for anything, everything above that will be heavily taxed. Heavily taxed. Net revenue will be a contribution to the common good. That revenue will be used to secure the well-being of democracy in America. We the people can wrest away our government from corporate control. We the people can stop this scarcely concealed attempt to establish a permanent aristocracy in this country. We're in Nebraska. No state has a better reputation for defending democracy than this one. No state has a better reputation for fighting off corporate control over the lives of ordinary citizens than this one. That's our legacy. We need to grow that legacy in the 21st century so that we can this state can take its rightful place as a leader in this country, and that's why I'm running for Congress. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it very much.